In the interstellar halls of the Concordium Academy, where hundreds of species studied under the banners of truth and memory, the alien lecturer prided himself on precision. For the Zelthri, history was absolute. Every event carved into crystalline archives that could not be questioned, and every fact recited word for word as it was first inscribed. So when the instructor turned to the visiting human delegation and asked them to recall Earth's nations, it was meant as a demonstration of humanity's limited command of memory compared to those who bound their lives to records. But the moment Daniel Reeves raised his hand, everything went wrong, because he did not answer as expected. He did not say what was written in the archives. Instead, he said, with the quiet certainty of someone recalling the taste of bread or the sound of rain, that the capital of France was Marseille, not Paris, and the room filled with laughter from dozens of alien throats that could not understand why a species so young, so fragile, could misplace the capital of its own nation, until Daniel began to explain, calmly, meticulously, as if drawing from a well that only he could see, the long arc of history in which Marseille had been the true capital after the upheaval of the 19th century, after the fall of empires and the shifting of fleets to the Mediterranean, and he described in vivid detail the Palais de l'Unite, with its carved white stone and domes that caught the sun. He spoke of the great speeches given from its steps, of the battles fought protected harbor, of the moment when the tricolor flew above ships prepared to defend Europe itself. And the laughter faltered, because though the archives said nothing of this, some of the younger students felt a strange pressure in their minds, a flicker of recognition, as though they had heard of such things long ago and buried them deep. And when the lecturer pounded his claws against the console, demanding silence, his voice trembled, for even he, bound by memory as solid as stone, could almost see it, Marseille glowing in sunlight, not Paris, and he shut the lecture down immediately, dismissing it as human error. But Daniel's words spread like fire, and over the next days alien students whispered each other, repeating fragments of what the human had said, and in the privacy of their quarters some admitted they could recall it too. A second history, not written in any archive but real in their bones, as though the human had unlocked something hidden. The Concordium elders were not amused, and they summoned Daniel to explain, their chambers lit with crystalline records of every known fact of galactic history, demanding he retract his falsehoods. But he did not. He sat calmly, hands folded, eyes unflinching, and said, "We humans do not experience history as you do, fixed and frozen. To us, history breathes. It shifts, it fractures, it leaves scars and echoes, and sometimes those echoes sing louder than the words written in books." They accused him of trickery, of psychological manipulation, of destabilizing the young. But as the argument raged, more aliens found themselves recalling contradictions. Small at first, a star system whose capital shifted overnight in their minds, a battle remembered with two outcomes, until the elders themselves grew afraid. For their crystalline records had always been unchanging, but here was a human whose mere words cracked that certainty, whose presence forced them to feel the pliability of reality, and once felt it could not be undone. Whispers spread beyond the academy, carried into fleets and councils. Humans could reshape memory, not through technology, but through belief, through the strange, defiant way they clung to contradictions and lived with them, and the species who defined themselves through absolute archives. This was not a weakness but a terror, for humans could implant alternate histories merely by speaking. What could they do in war and diplomacy, in empire building? A Kelvari admiral confided to his aide that when he closed his eyes, he now saw Marseille as capital, as if the human truth had overwritten the old one, and he begged for silence lest his officers think him weak. While on a distant colony, a Zethian scholar wrote an entire treatise, suggesting that humanity's power lay in their ability to imagine not just futures, but pasts, to anchor themselves in realities that should not exist, and from those anchors to drag others with them, a force stronger than any weapon. For if you can make your enemy doubt their own history, you can make them doubt everything. Daniel himself became a figure of myth within weeks. Though he never raised his voice or claimed superiority, he simply answered questions when asked, and every answer threatened to peel open another fracture in the carefully preserved memory of the galaxy. For when he spoke of wars fought differently, of treaties signed in rooms that never existed, of capitals that had shifted without record, those who heard him began to remember fragments as if they too had lived them, and though the archives denied it, the living minds could not and it terrified them. The Concordium tried to suppress him, forbidding humans from speaking of history in public. But the damage was done, because what they failed to understand was that humanity's survival had always depended on this peculiar gift, this ability to bend, to reinterpret, to change narratives when the facts were unbearable. And while most species chained themselves to perfect recall, humans thrived in uncertainty, weaving myths, legends, and alternate truths that were not mistakes but tools, weapons, sharper than blades, shields stronger than iron. In time, the galaxy came to fear what was whispered in shadowed halls, that humans were not bound to a single reality, that their greatest strength was not their bodies, nor their weapons, but their refusal to let truth be final. For to them, even the past could be remade. And so when Daniel Reeves was asked in a final hearing before the elders why he insisted on Marseille, he leaned forward, eyes calm, and said, "Because in my world it was, and now in yours it is too." The silence that followed was heavier than war drums, and across the stars, countless beings shivered, because they realized that this fragile species from a single blue planet could do what no archive, no crystal, no empire could. They could alter reality itself, not with machines, but with memory, with conviction, with the audacity to believe in more than one truth. And in that moment, the galaxy understood the danger of humanity, not as warriors, not as conquerors, but as storytellers. And they whisper a new warning in their archives, one that no crystal could contain without trembling cracks along its perfect surface. Beware the humans, for they do not live in reality as you know it. They make their own,